Mr. President, this bill, as you would have noticed, is here for second reading, meaning that it had been previously circulated. And there's reason for that, because the contents of this bill suggest that it has very serious implications for the accountability by the government of public funds. And so this bill is very important and very critical as far as governance and public accountability is concerned. Now, this bill should have been tabled since October 2020, Mr. Deputy President.
Who was in government?
And it is very obvious, if you have to do the math, to figure out who was supposed to have tabled that bill. And it will live for us to wonder why it was not. But the St. Lucia Labour Party government has always had to pride itself on being accountable. And so we have made a very bold and brave move to take this bill to be tabled today. Mr. Deputy President, this bill should have set the precedent for public debt management way back then. And again, it was not tabled, and so we might be able to understand now why some of those decisions that were made. I must tell you that with a bill like this, there are certain decisions that a government or government officials or Minister of Finance or anyone would just not have been able to make. It was just not going to happen with a bill like this. And so the Labour Party government is extremely comfortable with such a bill. I know some ministers of finance in the region have had their own misgivings about it. There are some arguments that suggest that this bill may be tying the hands of a Minister of Finance because of so many various processes and so much that has to be, to be done. But the Labour Party government is not uncomfortable with anything that seeks to guarantee accountability and transparency with public finance management. And so we are here to pass this bill. Mr. Deputy President, the IMF report of 2022 indicated that this bill will do a number of things. Among them, it is supposed to enhance accountability and transparency in government. And so the bill seeks to ensure that there is sound fiscal policy in relation to public funds. The bill also provides for management legislation to put in place such entities such as debt management, a debt management unit, and a debt management committee. So you have an entire unit that has to be set up, and there's also a committee. The bill also makes provision for the publication of a medium debt management strategy for the government. So not only do you have to set up a unit, you have to come up with a debt management strategy. So it forces you, if you're not inclined, to have to do that. Mr. Deputy President, in addition, this bill provides authority of the Ministry of Finance to be the sole borrowing agency of the government. I'll say that again. This bill provides for the authority of the Ministry of Finance, or the Minister on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, to be the sole borrowing agency of government. So what it means is that all various statutory groups and all various entities can't just go and borrow money in the name of the government. The Ministry of Finance can do that. And so what can happen is that for any other entity to act, you have to satisfy certain principles or certain guidelines. So this bill really protects the integrity of the way public funds are handled. It is a very courageous move, and I want to compliment the Honorable Prime Minister for taking this to Parliament, because it, of course, gives him less latitude. There are a lot of restrictions, but being the type of individual that he is, I can see why he is comfortable taking it to the Parliament. Mr. Deputy President, I am happy to see that this bill will not allow for certain practices to continue. For instance, no one Minister of Finance, Mr. Deputy President, will be able to unilaterally cancel a private-public partnership to build an airport and revert to a direct award for any one entity that is selected on the whims and fancies of any Minister of Finance. Not Philip Joseph Pierre, not John Peter, not anybody else. That bill, had it been passed, perhaps we would not have had that situation as when it comes to the HIA. That bill also would not have made it possible for an agency like SASPA to have the government to guarantee them borrowing $175 million US, almost $500 million for a single project, the largest capital project ever to be undertaken in this country. Not a single bit of public tendering. That is the kind of atrocity that this bill seeks to avoid. Mr. Deputy President, there are clear guidelines provided by this bill for the selection of proper borrowing instruments by the government. So you can't just decide you're using bonds for something, using treasury bills for that, using all kinds of... The instruments to be used are clearly... there's clear guidelines for the use of these instruments through this bill. It also clearly defines the responsibilities of the main players in the process: the statutory boards, the debt management agency, and the Ministry of Finance. All of them have their specific roles, and their roles are clearly defined, so there's no overlap or no confusion as to who should be doing what. And I think earlier outside of this chamber, there was a nice little discussion between myself, the leader of opposition business, and a technocrat, where there were little areas that we were able to seek clarification on. And I think this is really the essence of this bill, in that both the government and the opposition can see what the bill intends to do and can see the benefit of these particular processes. Mr. Deputy President, the bill also is a requirement for public policy loan that the government will be able to access once it puts its house in order. So when this bill is enacted, it has a number of important benefits, guidelines for the government, and I think it is really going to protect the interest of our public finance management. There are guidelines for reporting, Mr. Deputy President. And if we turn to 8.1 in the bill, it explains that the minister has to report to Parliament, not to Cabinet, on a strategy and borrowing plan for approval. You see, so many times we have had, when I was in opposition, to come to the Parliament and ask for this, ask for that. I remembered with the CIP issue, asking for reports, asking for this, and decisions were made by the executive. Decisions that were affecting the public interest being made by the executive branch of government and not by the legislative branch. So this bill ensures that the minister has to report, and the minister, there is the Minister of Finance, has to report to the Parliament on the strategy, because Parliament is represented by the people who elect you. What do you call the common people? That is why Parliament has authority. And we here in the Senate are the upper house, but it is most specifically for the people in the lower house who people voted for. They have to account to the people when it comes to how they're going to spend their tax money. And that is the beauty of such a piece of legislation. Mr. Deputy President, updates on the country's borrowing plan will have to be laid before Parliament. So you can't just come there after 5 years or 4 years in government. You have borrowed, how much was borrowed in the last 5 years? I've lost count. Almost $1 billion? They are all different. I don't think we really know you. there are different opinions, because when you look at what's on the paper or what's on the books, and then the DFCs, you really have to wonder if we really have the correct figure. But what we know is that it was the most borrowing that has ever been done by any government in the history of this country. That we know. As far as the figure, you know, because of all those irregularities, I do not want to even try to state a figure. So this is not going to be a creature of that piece of legislation where a whole term goes and monies are borrowed from all kinds of, you know, for all kinds of reasons, and the parliament does not have an account of any plan that is laid before them for borrowing. Mr. Deputy President, I believe that what this bill seeks to do, based on the objectives of the bill, based on the requirements of the bill, that a good government will be able to manage with this bill, will be able to fulfill the expectations of this bill. But any government that has other ideas will have some difficulty. And I believe it is going to help to protect the integrity of all governments, not just one party, but governments in general, in terms of their best practices, in terms of their procedures, and in terms of how they go about managing public funds. And so the St. Lucia Labour Party government is very comfortable that in just about 2 years in office, we have taken this bill before this House to be passed. Mr. Deputy President, it shows the courage of this government. It shows the level of accountability that we are prepared to put forward. And it shows our respect for the use of public funds. And so, I present this public finance management bill to the Senate for its approval for our Parliament and for our people. Thank you.